now go into something a little bit more, I guess, tied into mainstream sounds, and that would be The Damned, right, guys?
The Damned, yes. So this is Machine Gun Etiquette, coming in number 488 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums, number 48 in 1979, number 2,555 of all time. It's The Damned's second highest rated album on Best Ever Albums, coming in behind their 1977 album, Damned, Damned, Damned. It's not on Rolling Stone's list. I'm going to guess that this is a John special.
Same, I agree.
This is a John special. Yes, this is one of two John specials. Correct.
So why this album, John?
Because they're a seminal punk rock band. And
no, but why this album? Why this album of theirs and not Damned?
Because I'm familiar with this one, and while it might not be the highest rated from the areas you're going, I think this one is the one that I was most familiar with in the punk scene that I was in growing up. This is the one that was referenced most. Yeah. All right. Well, I think it's Matt who starts this one, right? Followed by me.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to be Matt's favorite of the week. I really like this album. This was... I was very surprised. I was expecting just to kind of come in with this album and get a straight ahead, just punk, like, rather heavy punk record, and I was impressed with the variety in here. There was a lot more than just punk going on here. There were guitar solos and parts that were rocking out that kind of borderlined on metal and hard rock, which I thought was kind of interesting. There was a really cool use of some sort of keyboard, some sort of electronic keyboard, particularly in a song like "I Just Can't Be Happy Today." There's like a solo in that just the notes, the way that the notes kind of progressed and stuff. I thought it was melodic. I thought it was interesting. It went in directions that I didn't expect, and it just added a layer of complexity that was impressive. I really like the song "Anti-Pope," where it kind of starts off as a really pretty much straight ahead punk song, and then it goes into this kind of Rolling Stones breakdown that's kind of got like the Bo Diddley beat, and it's got the congas, and and then it goes back into like the punk part at the end, which was just really interesting. So there were a lot of things that were kind of, they were throwing curveballs at you and keeping you interested, and it was a fun record. I listened to it, I don't know, 3 or 4 times. And I think I liked it the more I listened to it, and was just, it's a band that I have heard of before, but I didn't recognize any of these songs or anything like that. And I think just the main takeaway for me was just being impressed with, just the different directions that it went in, and the variety of stuff. And it also sounded as well. Again, it's credited for not sounding terribly dated, sounding fairly fresh in certain parts. And I like that as well. So I'm a thumbs up on this. This was a really fun listen.
Yeah, one of the reasons I love this album, Matt, is something you touched on, that earlier Damned albums are a little bit more in the punk lane. Although I think it's kind of like some other bands that they get a rep of having a sound, and then you listen to their albums and you realize that how they are categorized is a little lazy at times. Like we the Buzzcocks got labeled as punk a lot of times, and I think we clearly could see that they're kind of more in the tradition of British songwriting, pop songwriting. You know what I mean? They are punk in many ways.
I think punk's kind of like it's like an attitude, It's almost like if you have that British snarly kind of vocal, it's going to be like, in your fast rock and roll music, it's gonna come off as somewhat punk, I would say.
Right. Well, and these guys, for if you're going to want to call them the punk band, they're a punk band in sort of the Clash lane, and that they can do it. They can genre shift, and I think their musical ability is a little higher than the so-called traditional punk band, right? That's kind of doing a couple things, and you see that here. You've got you've got stuff that sounds vaguely psychedelic on this album, I would say at times. Things that sounds like metal on this album all over the place. Certainly, what we think of as punk, but yeah, like Matt said, there's blues rock on this album. And a song like Smash It Up, right, is basically, it's it's kind of like the type of song The Offspring would write 20 years
Yeah.
later, isn't it? Like, it really is. I mean, it's, and I wonder, as I was listening to that, I hadn't ever put two and two together. I'm like, I wonder if Smash by The Offspring is derived from that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, but you can definitely see it, because Smash It Up kind of has the vibe that The Offspring always go. I'm just using that as an example, so I'm just kind of reaching there, but definitely.
Well, that song starts off kind of like it's got like a mid-90s, almost like alt-rock grunge guitar echoey kind of thing going on, and then it's because it's two parts, right? Smash It Up, part 1 and part 2. So that was another thing. I was kind of like, oh, this is like mid-90s alt-rock,
Well, and much like another band we're covering tonight, like, there's no doubt that this is a British band. And, a lot of punk bands, you're like, are they from New York or are they from Britain, and different stuff? And they can kind of, the Clash always had, the reggae elements and stuff. And while they were British, they didn't, to me, they didn't seem as quintessentially British, right? Outside of that's where their roots were from. And the Ramones sort of sounded like they could be American, but could just as easily be British, right? Different grades. Like, this band, to me, sounds British. And, what I'm learning about the late 70s is that Britain had this big pot of sounds, right? A lot of which, they're everything from the punk that they were doing to the continuation of British singer-songwriters to, the two-tone ska we covered, the beginnings of the new romantic stuff. There's all kinds of different stuff that's bouncing around in Britain in the late 70s. I feel in some ways it's almost like a golden era for British rock music, even more so than the 60s and early 70s in some ways, because of the diversity of what's coming out of it. But yeah, this was a, and I know this album, so it's not exactly like this snuck up on me, but this was, I always have felt that this is a really good, clean album in terms of how it sounds for a punk album, and it's extremely accessible for a punk album as well. I've always loved this. I talked about Smash It Up, which I like quite a bit, but also I like Melody Lee is always a song I've really, really liked. And I think Looking at You is an MC5 cover, if I remember correctly. I remember having the MC5 disc and then being aware of that before I heard it on the Damned album. But yeah, I enjoyed that one too. I also have not mentioned, I don't want to take too much away from you, Jess, but this week a lot of the bands had very good lyrics, and the Damned's lyrics are very funny. Specifically Love Song, which is kind of like an anti-love song, I would say, lyrically. I don't know how much you guys saw that though, but there's some great lyrics in there that are kind of like snarky in the punk way, like a spitting in the eye type punk lyrics a little bit. So
I found Anti-Pope and Noise Noise Noise. Those made me smile.
Yes.
They were funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't go to church, but if I go, I'm just gonna nick the collection plate. That's why I'm gonna go.
Yes. Like I said, that spit in your eye punk like sensibility. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where that sensibility. I mean, that's where they fall into the punk label, because they have the energy and anger, they have that rebellious spirit, and they have that kind of fuck you attitude towards establishment and the government, and that's all over that. I'm with you guys. I enjoyed this album too, and like you guys, this is a band that doesn't really want to be defined by one sound. They are experimenting and trying out different genres. I heard that as well. I heard things that I heard the psychedelic part, but I also sound like in Machine Gun, I heard something that sounded like Queen almost. And then they are, unlike, if you think of a prototypical punk band, they are not afraid to throw keyboards or piano right as kind of its own thing. Like in Melody Lee, there's an opening piano part that's just, atypical punk, if you were gonna define that. I heard some Doors on these hands. They also had the circus music, which is
that's right.
For me.
Well, that's where I said the psychedelic. That's I thought of that.
Josh, do you hate that song? Because I thought of you, the circus clown.
Yes, I did not like.
Was that I Just Can't Be Happy Today? Was that where all that was in?
No,
that's These Hands.
These Hands. Okay.
He talks about being a psycho clown that he's
Oh
inside,
yeah,
he's smiling, but he's wearing
okay.
a frown
Yes.
inside. Yeah,
he's in a he's like a killer circus clown, right? Isn't that the whole? Yeah,
and it's got the carnival, it's the waltz, it's the it's the anti-Josh song.
Yes.
Yeah.
And carrying it through to the end, Smash It Up, which I think maybe my favorite song on the album, is they continue to just kind of push out and not be hemmed in by like the just basic power chord, yelling type of thing. And I think that's why this is probably one of the better, I don't know, early punk bands, is because they are branching out and in some ways making punk more accessible to other people. Not like, I don't know, rudimentary or basic in some sense. There's more here, like Matt said, to listen to, and there is depth to it.
I throw in that new wave. I'm getting a new wave feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's I would say it seems like a concerted effort, especially knowing what Damn 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 sounds like. I think this is their third album, and so Damn 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 was their first. So I think it's like a 3-year period there, but 3 or 4 year period, one of the two. But yeah, by this time, I feel like a lot of punk bands. There's some that don't, right? We talked about the Ramones kind of sound like the Ramones through their entire career, but then you have the bands like The Clash, right, that go in a lot of different directions, and we've even seen it. We've covered Clash self-titled, then we did Give Them Enough Rope, and there's a lot of differences in terms of the sound on that album, and certainly we're going to get London Calling and Sandinista, and I don't think we cover Combat Rock, but that's another one, and there's a little bit of a similar journey there with The Clash. Green Day, of course, later, right, kind of tries to go in that same idea, but creating a lot of different stuff. So there's a long tradition of punk, of upsetting. And what's more punk than being different than what you're expected to be, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly. Yeah. And
so,
I would agree too that I think there is kind of a more polished sound to this album than even some of the other of their contemporaries. We've heard punk bands that are more kind of garage lo-fi sounding, and that's not really what this band sounds like.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I thought the production's not immaculate, but the production's very solid on this album for sure. Mm-hmm. So, all right, so 3 thumbs up.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yep.
Gotcha.